Sometimes you play a game and you can feel that the creator of the game really put their heart, their soul, their passion, and their enthusiasm into the game. And then sometimes you play games like Animix. Let's talk about that.
What does that even mean, Bowers Games?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Animix from Blue Orange Games. This is for 2 to 6 players, ages 8 plus, take about 10 minutes to play, and in Animix, this is a very simple game in which you're going to be dealt a hand of animal cards, and there's going to be a grid of animals set out in the middle of the table. And on your turn, you have a very easy choice to make. You can do one of two things. You can either take one of the cards from your hand and boom, put it immediately into your score pile, or you can take a card out of the grid in the center, put it into your score pile, and then play a card from your hand into the grid, which then is going to impact endgame scoring, because whoever has the most of a specific type of animal in their grid is going to, or in their pile, is going to score points based on the positioning of that same animal on the grid, which sounds interesting. And in theory, it is an interesting concept. However, as we're about to talk about the pros and the cons, it doesn't really stick the landing. So we're going to start with the pros on this one, and I like the artwork. Easy to learn, easy to teach. The different animal cards and how they score are all relatively simple, and there is a decent variety of those said animals. Goes up to 6 players, which is always something that I really like, even though I don't think it didn't play very well at 2 players at all. And the best thing I can say about this game is that if you have kids, I think between the age of 8 and 13, and they play games with kids that same age range, so like a group of kids that play games maybe after school or something like that, this could go over well because of how light and simple it is. But even then, there's so many other better games that are in the same time range, that play at the same player count, you know. Because moving on to the cons, and I'm just going to get straight to the cons. Animix feels like a very heartless game. It could have any theme in the world. This is a mechanical game at its core. Oh, how many of the green cards are in the row? How many of the gray cards are in the column? How many of the yellow cards are touching each other? The theme does not come across, despite the fact the artwork is very well done. Also, the game itself is just not very much fun. You know, I played it with my 7-year-old, and normally my 7-year-old likes the overwhelming majority of games. Didn't want to play this ever again. I brought this on to one of my game nights. It's a little bit of a glutton for punishment, and we played it twice on that game night. And they were hoping the second time, when we added some more of the slightly more difficult animals, the different ways to score, that'd be more interesting. And no, this was a complete dud. Nobody wanted to keep the game, because I always like to ask, hey, would you want this game just to have? Nobody wanted this game when we were done. My 7-year-old does not want to play this game ever again. I do not want to play this ever again. And the main reason, I think, is that the choices, while I actually do think it's kind of interesting, the grid and the scoring pile, I did like that part. The choices you make in the game all are just very by the numbers. It's like, oh, I really kind of want to score for, a monkey, so I'm going to put this in the score pile. Or, oh, I'm out of monkeys in my hand, so now what I'll do is I'll take a monkey from the grid, put it in my score pile, and put this wolf here, because the wolf's really not going to help anybody because he needs to be on the outside. And your turns are just boring, and the game itself just ends up being boring. And yes, it's nice that it's very, very short and it doesn't outstay its welcome, but it kind of does. Even at the 10-minute mark, it's still outstaying its welcome. Maybe if this were like a 3-minute game, I'd be more. No, it just didn't do it. It didn't have the it factor. It felt very mechanical, which is not always a problem. Like, if the mechanical aspect of the game is super awesome, I'm all about it. Give me a dry Euro every day of the week that has interesting mechanisms, and I'm all about it. However, this game just didn't do it for its target market, obviously my son, and it didn't do it as a game night thing, and it's a very hard recommendation to just about anybody. That's it. You know what? I can't recommend this to anyone, because while it is okay, it is a technically sound game. It works. It functions. It's not terrible. The rules aren't broken. The game isn't broken. It's just not that much fun. And in the end, if it doesn't have interesting choices and it's not that much fun, Animix is a really hard game for me to recommend to anyone. So in the end, Animix from Blue Orange Games, Definitely not staying in my collection. It is immediately out. But I don't want you to disregard all Blue Orange Games small box. Don't let Animix get out of here. Don't let that ruin the small box. If you want to get a Blue Orange Games small box games, go get Cross Clues, the new one for Blue Orange Games, which is absolutely spectacular. Might be my game of the year. That's how good it is. But don't get Animix. And here's the thing. I say that, and you're like, how can you be so sure that this isn't going to be somebody's cup of tea? And I 100% believe this. That no one will ever play Animix. No adult will ever play Animix and just be like, whoa, let's do that again. Run it again, baby. That was amazing. That blew my mind. Now, maybe if this was the first game a kid ever played in their entire life and you got to the higher player counts, because that's the other thing. The game was not fun at 2 players at all. This is definitely a game that's going to be better at the higher player counts. And I think we got up to 5 and it still was just boring. You know, at least for our group. We did not have fun. But there you go. That is Animix from Blue Orange Games. One that I think is ultimately going to be a very forgettable game that will be lost to the sands of time, as unfortunately most board games are. But there you go. It looks like it might be your cup of tea. Please tell me why in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.